Hello and welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about America's most infamous card counter. In a church foyer, he began his card counting job. He ended up joining a group of outsiders who were card counting after being asked to a meeting during a casual conversation. Together, they were successful in outperforming casinos at the blackjack table for 7 years across the nation thanks to the help of investors who provided them with $1 million in funding. Casinos eventually referred to him as America's most infamous card counter. It's not surprising that he had to start donning disguises in order to remain anonymous. His story started when he was let off from his copy editing position in 2004. He and his wife were expecting their second kid at the time, and they already had a 2-year-old. He should have known something was wrong when his workstation was moved 4 times in 4 months, most recently into a storage closet. Looking back, on the way to an interview, his car died on the side of the highway just as he began his job search. He and his wife had traveled in this car from their Texas wedding to their new home in Seattle, Washington. Additionally, it was the car that they had used to transport their son from the hospital to their home. He observed as it was taken away by a truck from a recycling firm. He just so happened to read a book called Bringing Down the House, which documented how a group of MIT students beat casinos by using counting strategies when playing blackjack. The game could be won, and winning was entirely legitimate. Using basic MUT could give players an advantage. What if he tried card counting, he thought. It was probably best that he kept his interest in card counting a secret from others. He struggled to discover any trustworthy data and was forced to look for some simple charts. He created a few flashcards, did his best to memorize numbers, and then left for the casino. He eventually won, and he carried a brand new $100 bill to church to pay off a friend's debt and to brag a little about how he had won it. He was expecting Jim to be stunned, but he didn't appear to be. He asked, "So, you know Ben then?" He was in his friend's Bible study group, which evidently already had a card counter. Jim responded, "He's done rather well for himself. I believe that he is buying a home." Ben was assembling a team in addition to buying a home. Card counters frequently create teams to share resources and funds, practice and test one another, share the emotional strain of significant victories and defeats, and even collaborate to win the game. They determined that they needed this position. They had gotten tired of the difficult employment market, poor salaries, frequent turnover, and tight work hours. He and his wife were tired of falling asleep at the dinner table. He thought to himself the number of hours he could play was unrestricted. Due to casinos' perpetual openness, the office was never closed. Although he hadn't spent much time in casinos, he enjoyed the thought of going up against powerful corporations. It's possible that the pastor's inner child saw a way out of moral conformity, even if it involved a little less pink music and a little more arithmetic. This was not gambling in the traditional sense. If he played right and put in the time, winning was a statistical given. Furthermore, he wouldn't be putting his own cash on the line. Their team was fully funded by investors, primarily friends and family of the team managers, to the tune of 7 figures. He started studying and practicing right away, memorizing the best basic strategy, perfecting his ability to keep the count correctly, incorporating deviations from the basic strategy when the changing count required it, placing the right bets, and handling any other peculiarities or distractions that might arise. He completed several practice hands before taking the final exam and joining the squad. His work order was immediately wanted after finishing the exam. He received tens of thousands of dollars in cash and was told to go play beatable blackjack in the casino. He was instructed to track his outcomes and bring any gains back. Compensation was given regardless of the outcome. At the conclusion of each session, 10 to 15% of the potential gains went into his pocket. He earned $20 to $40 per hour, playing at regional casinos in Washington state, using their bankroll and betting strategy. He was expecting to make at least $100 per hour in Las Vegas. The number of hours he could play was unrestricted. Due to casino's perpetual openness, the office was never closed. He could put the family to sleep and pay the cable bill the same night if it was due. He could take a flight to a casino for the weekend to work there and then come home to be a stay-at-home dad with the kids during his wife's normal 9-to-5 workdays. He and his wife were enthusiastic about the possible impacts for their family. To win at blackjack, it is necessary to be precise and flawless. When learning to count cards, one is trained to follow a number as it rises and falls from one moment to the next. Each dealt card brings new information, altering the way one bets and plays their hand. There are other numbers involved as well: fractions, estimation, division. It is necessary to process this information without missing a card or being distracted by the various distractions present in a casino. Have you ever been to a casino? There are many distractions to be found there. At least he wasn't trying his hand at card counting by himself. At any given moment, he had 2 managers and 12 to 20 teammates. They were united in beating the casinos and were loosely fashioned after the MIT squad. Vin's house operated like a 24-hour training headquarters. Players dealt cards at the dining room table. New recruits were put through rigorous training. People came and went. The basement fridge was stocked with cold drinks. The trampoline in the backyard was full of kids begging to be launched. They discussed any moral concerns that occurred. Being forced to be in casinos, where the air was constantly infused with glamour, avarice, smoke, and all sorts of depravity, made some of them feel more nervous than others. How were they helping the least of them that Jesus mentioned by beating casinos as a part of their religious tradition? It remained a matter of debate. In playing a game and doing so in a way that was largely frowned upon what was his service to society, he decided early in his venture that he was able to provide for himself and his family, which was plenty. Although they were a team, they traveled and played together rarely to maximize the profit and avoid being recognized as a unit. On school evenings, he would put his kids to bed and then drive to the nearest casinos to play. The kids always climbed into their beds by the time Dad got home, leaving no room. He squeaked into whichever kid-sized loft bed was available after tiptoeing over Playmobil floors and scaling little ladders. After an hour or two, it was time to wake up and make school lunches. If the kids were lucky, their lunch would include some of the comped food that he had brought home the night before, such as pizza, sub sandwiches, chicken strips, or bags of potato chips. However, to date, no casino has ever provided him with Lunchables and juice boxes as comps. At last, he was able to pay the bills on time. He had the freedom to decide when he worked and how many hours he put in each month. This gave him more time to spend with his family. Additionally, the work was never boring. While card counting is legal, casinos have the right to refuse service. If they believed that he was a threat to their profits, they might ask him to stop playing. This is known as a back-off in the world of card counting. The way in which casinos ask players to leave can vary. They can be polite or rude about it. While in Palm Springs, his ID was taken from him and not returned. In Washington, they refused to give him his winnings. In Chicago, physical force was used in an attempt to keep him from leaving the casino until he signed some papers. Generally, casinos are aware of the risks of being sued, but there have been instances where they have overstepped their boundaries. In addition to sharing information with national databases, casinos may also create wanted posters with a player's picture and information, known as flyering, and send them to other casinos to be on the lookout. One night, while at Caesar's Palace, he saw his own face on a piece of paper coming out of a fax machine. He initially started disguising himself when he put on a baseball cap to enter the casino for the first time. He changed into completely new outfits while traveling and did it in the back seat of his rental car. Like a grimy Harley-riding metalhead, he rode into town. He came back to the tables a second time, this time sporting an accountant-like look. Casinos hardly ever connect the dots. Despite the challenges, he continued to play. He enjoyed traveling, the thrill of defeating the game, and the satisfaction of outsmarting the casinos. He had the patience to wait for the cards to turn in his favor, even during long losing streaks, and he was able to tolerate the anger of pit bosses and the superstitions of other players. After being asked to leave a Vegas casino one day, he heard his name being called out from across the casino. He turned to see a man with a CZ-top beard and denim vest walking towards him. The man had one arm, which he extended to shake his hand. "You must be pretty good at what you do," he said. The man identified himself as the director of security for a group of casinos. "Naturally, there was no need to introduce yourself," he said. "I've known you for quite some time." He was able to recall every session he had played at the man's casinos. The man spoke with a twinkle in his eye and didn't seem to be trying to intimidate or assess him. Instead, he wanted to live vicariously through the stories of a working card counter. He even offered tips for avoiding security at his casinos. The team maintained contact with the man. Not long after their initial meeting, he shared some news with them. The Griffin Agency, a premier tracking and investigation force, had bestowed upon him the title of the most notorious card counter in America. During his time on the team, he played more hours and won more money than any other member, approaching $1 million in total. In 2011, a documentary film about the church team, Holy Rollers, the true story of card-counting Christians, was released, leading to the disbanding of the team. However, one of the man's former managers later started a successful business teaching others how to win at the game. Despite casinos' efforts to stop card counting for more than 50 years, it is still possible to win at the game. He spent 6 years as a card counter on one of the most successful teams in recent history. He found the work environment to be full of camaraderie and excitement. He learned how to structure his work life more efficiently and was no longer as drained or distracted as he had been as a parent. He experienced the benefits of investment firsthand and learned how to handle the extreme highs and lows, known as variance, that come with big wins and losses. Most importantly, he learned from card counting how to pay better attention not just to the cards, but also to the people in his life, to himself, and to his own personal development. The man considered his time as a card counter as a down payment on a future collection of his writings because he was a writer before he was ever a blackjack player. He resumed writing after his employment as a card counter came to an end, but he still found blackjack to be appealing. While many players lose interest in the game over time, he never lost interest in winning. Colin, his former manager, invited the man to assist with teaching at improvised blackjack tables and in front of packed rooms when he created a blackjack boot camp for budding counters. So, what do you think? You're going to start counting cards? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more great content. Thanks for watching.